Potion Masters, chapters 15 and 16. Yeltsin stood alone on the porch, stroking his stubbly chin. "It's the creep from last night," Gordy whispered, stepping back from the peephole in the door. "The one I told you about." He pawed at his eyes and sniffled, but the need to cry had vanished the moment he saw the Russian. "Where's the lady?" Max asked. "The one with the spiky hair?" "She's not there," Gordy answered. Yeltsin had parked his white SUV in the center of the driveway. A sharp rap of knuckles sounded against the door. "Hello, Stitzers? Anybody home? I have a question, that is all." "What do you think he wants?" Adeline asked. Gordy shrugged. "To find some illegal plant in the living room and shut down my mom's lab, I guess." "Well, don't open the door," Max said. "Maybe he'll just leave a note or something and go away." "Good idea," Gordy agreed. "Just stay very—" "I hear children's voices," Yeltsin interrupted in a sing-song voice. "No need to fear me. I'm not a bad guy. I know wish to shut down your mother's lab, whatever that means." He chuckled. "I spoke with your father, and he said he's okay. Just open the door, and I will explain all to you." Gordy blew out his cheeks. "Perfect. Just perfect." He shook his head and reached for the deadbolt. "What do you think you're doing?" Max asked. "Keep your voice down," Gordy hissed. "He knows we're home. He can hear us through the door." "Yes, Yeltsin has very good ears," Yeltsin said. "Family trait, like an eagle." "Eagles have good eyes, not ears," Adeline said, facing the door. "In Russia, they have both. Come, open door now." He rapped his knuckles once more against the door. Gordy pulled the chain out of the latch and undid the bolt. "Don't worry, I'm not going to invite him inside," he said. The door swung in, and Yeltsin's beaming face greeted them warmly. "Hello, young ones. Where is the master of the house?" Gordy stepped forward. "What do you want?" "Ah, so you are the young master." Yeltsin gave Gordy a wink. "Listen closely, boy. My employer, Miss Faustus, has informed me that a package containing substances of an illegal nature and potentially hazardous to good citizens of your neighborhood may or may not have passed this way within last day or so. Is this true?" Gordy chewed his bottom lip. "I don't know. What did it look like?" "Perhaps this big?" Yeltsin held his hands about 6 inches apart. "And would have come from out of country?" "What was in it?" Max asked. Yeltsin raised his eyebrow and wiped the corner of his mouth with his thumb. "You have not seen it, then?" All three kids shook their heads. "You are certain?" "Because hear me, boy, if said package did arrive in this home containing what we think it contained, it would be big blow to your family's well-being. Very unfortunate to Mommy and Daddy. Perhaps they go away to prison for a long time." He planted his fists onto his hips and tapped his boot against the porch. "Because they received a package?" Gordy scoffed. "They wouldn't go to prison because someone mailed them something." Yeltsin flipped up his hand and shrugged. "Maybe, perhaps. We know your mother has not been entirely honest with her practices in this home. We know for a fact she possesses many items that would not be taken lightly by Department of Health and Safety should they discover. I've seen people go to prison for much less." Gordy couldn't remember anyone ever explaining about his mom's profession, and now, out of the blue, she was in danger of going to prison? It didn't add up. Yeltsin didn't add up. Gordy began to doubt the strangers had anything to do with the Department of Health and Safety. But then, who were they really, and what did they want? "Well, that certainly sounds serious. Thanks for the information." Gordy attempted to close the door, but Yeltsin shot out a meaty hand to stop him. "It is serious. Now, why don't you let me come inside and take a look around? It would be in your best interest." He took a step through the doorway, but paused. Squinting his eyes, he stared at the ceiling, his nostrils flaring in and out as he inhaled. "What's that burning smell?" Gordy retreated. We burned a batch of brownies," Adeline said. "That not smell like brownie." Yeltsin took another step and pushed Max out of the way. Gordy floundered to find his footing as he continued to back away from the door. Yeltsin fixed his eyes on the kitchen, his hands clenching at his sides. "You can't be here," Gordy stammered. "You have to leave now." As Yeltsin reached forward to push Gordy from his path, the large Russian man made an abrupt stop. Gordy, Max, and Adeline watched in amazement as Yeltsin's eyes widened and he swiveled on his heels. Then, with his head stiff and rigid, he marched out of the house with lengthy strides. He didn't stop marching until he reached the driver's side of the door of his SUV and plopped down so heavily in the seat that axles groaned beneath his weight. The vehicle's engine roared to life, and the Russian backed down the driveway. Suddenly, he slammed on the brakes, causing his head to bobble back and forth. Yeltsin blinked several times, staring down at the steering wheel in confusion. He dug at his eyes with his fists. Then, with a screech of tires, the SUV sped out of the neighborhood. Chapter 16. Okay, what just happened? Max demanded, slamming the front door behind him. One second that man was ready to charge into the kitchen. The next he was tucking his tail between his legs and running out of here. That's because of the wards, Gordy explained. At least now we know they work for sure. But that was close. Really close, Adeline agreed. Gordy, I don't think he's here on behalf of the Department of Health and Safety. What are wards? Max asked. Protective potions, Gordy said. My mom sets them up all over the house to keep unwanted people from snooping around. They're activated the moment a member of the family demands that someone leaves the property. He thought back to how scared he had been to tell Yeltsin to leave. Max stared up at the door jamb. That's awesome. Can I get some of those for my house? Maybe later. Gordy hurried through the kitchen and down the stairs into the basement. Wasting no time, he tidied up his mess and collected the 2 now empty potion vials and returned them to their case. When he resurfaced upstairs, his dad was just entering through the garage door. Told you he would be in the lab, Jessica said from behind her dad. He's always in there. Gordy's dad gave him a stern look as he placed the cartons of Chinese food on the kitchen counter. What were you doing down there? Gordy stared at his dad, surprised by how unfriendly he sounded. Nothing. We were just brewing, and we sprayed Baudry. Gordy casually slipped the box containing Aunt Pris's vials behind his back. You sprayed Baudry? His dad crossed his arms and peered over Gordy's shoulder. What's that smell? It's not ocean breeze. Gordy looked at Max and Adeline for help, but they were too busy trying to sneak their way out of the kitchen. No one was here to supervise you, his dad said. Supervise me? Gordy started to smile, but when he realized his dad was serious, his face screwed up in confusion. Mom lets me go into the lab all the time by myself. Then maybe it's time for a change, Mr. Stitzer tossed his keys harshly onto the counter. Something caught on fire. I know that smell, and I'm willing to bet you brewed something you shouldn't have. Gordy swallowed, squeezing the package tighter in his fingers. Did his dad know the truth? You could have burned down the house, Gordy's dad bellowed. No, Dad, it's not like that at all. It was just... Don't you dad me, Max. Adeline, go home. Mr. Stitzer pointed to the door. Yes, sir, Mr. Stitzer, Max said, bowing his head respectfully. We're sorry if we caused any trouble. Adeline grabbed her jacket from the coat hanger. Yeah, try not to kill Gordy, okay? Otherwise, I won't have anyone to copy notes off in geometry, Max grinned, but a smile fell from his face under the force of Mr. Stitzer's glare. Get out, Gordy's dad snapped. Max and Adeline didn't wait around and bolted from the room. You didn't have to yell at them. It's not their fault. Gordy knew his dad had to put his foot down and enforce the rules of the house every so often. But how many times had Gordy gone down into the lab with his dad having full knowledge of it? Loads, and never once had he reacted with such rage. No dinner for you tonight. Go to your room and go to bed. Was his dad really stressed out from work? Gordy glanced at the microwave clock. But it's just after 5. You're grounded, Gordy, and until you start respecting my rules, you're going to be spending a lot of time in that room of yours. Fine, Gordy stomped away, but stopped at the foot of the stairs. You should know, Yeltsin came by today and tried to get into the house. He did? Gordy raised his eyebrows. Gordy's dad raised his eyebrows thoughtfully. Did you let him in? No, I didn't let him in. Are you kidding me? You should have. I told him he could come and explore a few of the rooms further. He opened the cupboard and brought out paper plates and plastic cutlery. When did you tell him that? Gordy squeezed the handrail. This was not happening. His mom needed to come home this instant. Clearly his dad had lost his mind. At the grocery store, Mr. Stitzer opened the carton of rice and spooned servings onto 3 paper plates. He then opened a container of sweet and sour chicken. The delicious aroma wafted across the kitchen and Gordy's stomach grumbled. He had only eaten 1 pupusa at Adeline's. Oh, how he wished he would have ignored his urge to scrute Aunt Pris's potion. I bumped into both him and Miss Faustus at the store this morning. And we had another nice long chat about those allegations. Gordy's dad continued. I feel it would be in our best interest to not impede their investigation. It will only end up looking poorly on our part. I'll give him a call later this evening and apologize. I trust you weren't rude to Mr. Yeltsin. Gordy threw his hands over his head in disgust and stormed up the stairs. End of chapter 16.